What's going on, 7th graders? This is Mr. Williams from Southern Guilford. Let's get started. Today we are writing an objective summary. A couple things you're gonna need. You're gonna need a pencil or a pen. You're gonna need your notebook or a piece of paper, or if you have a laptop, go on and bring that in too. So throughout this lesson, there are a few words that you're going to need to know. First word, cumulonimbus. That is a cloud-forming towering mass with a flat base at fairly low altitude and often a flat top, as in thunderstorms. Second word, meteorologist. I'm sure you've heard that one before. A scientist concerned with the processes and phenomena of the atmosphere, especially as means of forecasting the weather. So throughout this lesson, you'll be able to do a couple of things. Let's take a look. You'll be able to identify central idea, identify key details, analyze development, and also draw evidence to support the analysis. So I know you're probably wondering, what is an objective summary? I know you've seen the summaries before, you've done them for years, but this is just a little bit different. Let's talk about it. An objective summary is the central idea of the topic read. It is also defined as being the most important piece of information from the text that supports the conclusion while staying objective. Right. Okay, guys, let's dive right into the text. The text we're going to read today is called How Tornadoes Form and Why They're So Unpredictable. All right? A couple things I need you guys to do. I need you to pause your video, pull out the passage. So if your teacher provides you with the passage, go on and pull it out. If you don't have the passage, it's actually okay because we're going to take a look at a short snippet of it as well. I need you to identify the importance of the text. And then lastly, I need you to think of what main points the author is trying to convey. Well, welcome back. So hopefully when you read this passage, you learned a lot about weather and about thunderstorms and, of course, tornadoes. So let's take a look at a couple of different paragraphs. Let's look at this paragraph right here that starts with the difficulties of forecasting. Let's read it together. The difficulties of forecasting tornadoes are much harder to forecast than hurricanes, which are larger storms that last a lot longer. According to NOAA, the average amount of time between a tornado warning and the arrival of a storm is about 13 minutes. Watch this part. A tornado warning means a twister has been sighted. A tornado watch means one is possible. That's important. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Let's take a look at this paragraph here that starts with predicting the path of tornadoes across the landscape. Okay, let's read this one as well. Predicting the path of a tornado across landscapes can also be challenging. Brooks says tornadoes tend to follow the general movement of the thunderstorms they are associated with, but the route can also be erratic. So as we looked at a couple of these paragraphs here, I kind of pulled out some important facts from this article, and we're going to talk about that now. So before we create our objective summary, there are a couple of rules that we need to follow. Here's a rubric that'll show you those rules, all right? So we need to introduce the text with an objective summary. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. The text blank by blank is mostly about, so forth and so on, okay? We next need to identify the central idea. Central idea is very, very important because you cannot formulate a summary if you don't know what the article is talking about. Lastly, we need to cite key details that prove this central idea. So let's get started. Let's introduce the topic. How tornadoes form and why they're so unpredictable. Second step, the author, Mr. Brian Clark from National Geographic Partners. Lastly, the topic, simply tornadoes. So let's talk central idea. Tornadoes are unpredictable. I got this central idea from reading the passage, but also I got it from the title. Here's a little tip. Sometimes, not all the time, but just sometimes, the title of your article may give you an insight on what the main idea actually is. So in this case, it definitely did. The main idea, again, tornadoes are unpredictable. So let's look closely into this paragraph here. Predicting the path of a tornado across the landscape can also be challenging. So I chose this to support my central idea. So I've provided you guys with some sentence stems that will help you to continue to write your objective summary. Here they are. In paragraph blank, the author states, that's one. Let me read a couple more. From the reading, I know that. Based on what I read. And lastly, this example provides further proof that. All these are great examples on how you can start your sentences within your objective summary. Okay, let's talk key details and some evidence. So I pulled out a couple different things from the text. Let's dive in. Notice my sentence stems here, here, and there. Okay, so from the reading, I know that the National Severe Weather Laboratory's Warn on Forecast research project is aiming to improve forecasting, but the work is slow going. Let's talk about my next point I pulled out. Based on what I read, measuring wind speeds inside of a twister is extremely difficult. Because of this, scientists typically rely on damage to estimate velocities. Notice the word estimate. It means to guess. Keep that in mind. According to the text, sometimes the system makes really good forecasts, and other times it doesn't, says Brooks. Now, I know you're probably saying, who is Brooks, right? Notice I put down here a caption of who he actually is and how Brooks is a research meteorologist with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's, NOAA, National Severe Storms Laboratory, NSSL, in Norman, Oklahoma. So what I did here is I referenced this guy, and he is a credible source. He has so many credentials, and anyone who doesn't believe what he says is probably crazy. So guys, here is a rubric that I want you to use when you're creating your own objective summary. So let's take a look at these three things that we really talked about today. We introduced the text. We have sentence stems that start our objective summary, like it's about blank, okay? We then talked about evidence. We use text evidence to prove the truth or accuracy of the statement. So your teacher may provide you with this rubric, but let's make sure we're focused on these three things for this assignment, because the next two things we're gonna focus on in the next video. So guys, here is my example of an objective summary. I read How Tornadoes Form and Why They're So Unpredictable by Brian Clark. It is about the formation of tornadoes and how they can be, at times, random. The most interesting thing about this text is the fact that even though scientists study tornadoes heavily, they are still surprised by their appearance as well as outcomes. Based on what I read, a tornado warning means a twister has been sighted. A tornado watch means one is possible. This tells me sometimes scientists and meteorologists aren't certain if a tornado will form or not. So pretty much what I did was I used all those things that we talked about in our last slide. I provided some evidence. I used those sentence stems that guide us through this piece of writing. Now, it's your turn. You guys get a chance to try this out and practice on your own. So now's the time when you get that paper, that pen, or that laptop, and you get to writing. So before you start, hold tight. A couple things I want you to remember. Identify the topic. Secondly, analyze central idea. And lastly, don't forget, always cite the evidence. All right, I'm Mr. Williams from Southern Guilford. One more time, 7th graders, and I will see you next time.